And with that, I give the audience the floor. The mics, do I send the mic? I think there's a mic coming.
Okay. Good afternoon. My question, it's quick. I want to know the actual place of ECD, which we are contemplating in the payment ecosystem. Is it coming as a competition to the booming mobile money platform, or it's coming as an alternative? Because we have so many innovations coming on now in the ecosystem. We should know exactly where ECD is going to be within the ecosystem. Thank you.
I think we'll take 3 questions at a go. Let's have the gentleman in the gray suit.
Thank you very much. I'm from the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And my question goes to Reverend. As much as we are encouraging our members to go digital, some of them will still want to go to your offices and make payment. But the situation still persists that when they go, your staff still demand money from them before they can issue a receipt for payment. A typical example was just last week. A member went there to make payment, and the explanation was that there was a long queue. So for them to issue the receipt for her in time, she has to part with money. It's still a challenge, and I believe if you can work on it, it will assist the business community. Thank you very much.
Next question, I believe there was a hand here. I would like to give the gentleman. Okay.
Thank you. I'm Mohamed Marzouk from the Office of the National Chief Imam. I'm happy we are discussing impact. The digital currency is a great novelty of enormous benefits. And on the face value, we can identify transparency, honesty, and efficiency as the primary benefits. However, it is equally a great risk and opportunity for fraudsters in the cyberspace if it is not well understood and applied. Do you have in place a mechanism to ensure proper public education on the use of the digital currency? Thank you.
Okay. I believe I should issue a disclaimer that these questions are totally random. The first question had to do, I think, the place of the ECD, if I'm, yes, so.
So with regards to the ECD and where it falls, as you all know, today, whether it's mobile money or any kind of payment transaction, it's all being run on the back of the CD notes and coins that the central bank is issuing. So the ECD does not come to compete with them, it actually comes to enable them. So rather than run an entire innovation of physical notes, you're running it off digital notes. So ECD by itself, I mean, today if I gave you cash, and always think of it this way, as a rule of thumb, whatever you use cash for today, when you hold physical cash in your hand, what you use it for is how you're going to continue to use it. The only difference now is it's going to be a bit efficient. Now let me clarify something here. When I want to send money to someone else and I have cash in my hand, I either go to a bank, I go to a mobile money provider, I give it to them, I either use a wallet, USSD, or some means and send. That is a payment service. So my cash cannot go to a different town by itself. It has to go in that form of being transmitted. So it's important to separate a central bank digital currency from payment services, the payment services layer. Of course, we have endeavored to go the next step of ensuring that our brothers and sisters in the off-grid environments, the frontier-type regions, also have the opportunity to actually do some transaction where there's no payment service. I mean, financial inclusion is limited by the availability of connectivity or power. That's the unfortunate reality globally. And so what we actually hope to be able to do, which we're one of the people pioneering this, is the ECD would actually also be capable of being used in an offline environment through some smart cards. So these are some of the things we'll be testing in the pilot environment, but just generally keep in mind that a payment service is one thing. It's a service that is built on top of whatever currency that the central bank is issuing to you, but the ECD is currency. So there's paper, there's coin, and this is just a digital version, and that's really the distinction. And maybe I also touch on there was a last question about the safety and security and the cyber fraud. This is something we've worked robustly on. First of all, there are different types of ECD. So Andy mentioned, central bank digital currency. So Andy mentioned wholesale and retail. Now, even for the retail central bank digital currencies, there are two types. There's the account-based, which would basically sit with us as a central bank. We open accounts for every one of you, and banks and payment service providers will help you through their apps and internet banking and everything else spend that money. Or the value-based, which is just like notes today. We move it to the commercial banks, and then they also put in ATMs, they put in bank accounts, they make it available to consumers. Our choice in going a certain route, that value route, was one of the first layers of securing that. What that means is today, there's already a cybersecurity directive. There's a payment law that has so many requirements in terms of security for consumers and consumer protection laws. All of these, the consumer recourse mechanism guidelines, these were all crafted to safeguard consumers from fraud and protect them from abuse. And so when you deploy a CBDC, or in our case, the ECD, in this manner, the measures that you've set for the industry begin to apply. So from that level, that too is secure. Now, of course, on the back end, there are several sophisticated mechanisms that are in place to make sure that digital currency is not being double spent. You can't easily intrude into the system and all these other aspects of it. That I won't go too much into it. But I think the other concern that the gentleman may have has to do with something called social engineering. In the end, no matter how sophisticated the systems are, the weakest link can be the human being themselves. If they aren't appropriately trained, if they aren't clear in their minds how to use some of these products. I mean, if you listen to one of the mobile money fraud that was mentioned, you would, for instance, here, and someone called me and did this and did that, and I put in my PIN. Your PIN is yours. It's your personal identification number, but people, unfortunately, may not know. So people can use social engineering to confuse them, and they do this. At that point, at the system level, it's tough to stop that. So it's consumer education. So we have factored in a significant element of consumer education in the pilot that we're running. And for that reason, we're actually looking at 3 different segments: urban, peri-urban, and the frontier. So that whatever we do and learn from this, when we finally decide to implement this as a permanent implementation, we know how to train consumers to create public awareness, not just on what it is, but how to use it safely. But as it stands, there are sufficient mechanisms in place to secure consumers at a system level, operational level, and the last leg becomes how you save yourself from some of these unfortunate schemes and scams. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oppong. I believe the next question was to Reverend.
Thank you very much, the gentleman from the Ghanaian industry, you said. I must admit that wherever we find such unethical and such unacceptable and such fraudulent behavior, we go ahead to take the necessary disciplinary action against the staff. Last year, I remember we terminated appointment of about 3 staff for such behaviors. And anytime we have such, and then we also want to encourage the public. Currently, we have set up a unit that we call the Tax Audit and Quality Assurance Department, which is completely independent of their normal tax offices. And they are overseeing the quality as well as the giving assurance to the taxpayer. We have been advertising the numbers. We'll keep on advertising, and we want to encourage the taxpayer that anytime you find such an opportunity, or you are confronted with such a behavior, please use the numbers to inform us. It is very important that we also as taxpayers do not condone. I've found a few situations where I've asked people to help me give the data or give the specific information, and then they sort of want to push back. I want to encourage that if you give us any lead, we'll also make sure that whatever protection we need to give to you to ensure that you are not intimidated or find yourself in any other situation as far as the tax officers are concerned, will be done. Therefore, I want to encourage that we definitely do not condone, and we have zero tolerance. If we see it, we will take the necessary disciplinary action to ensure that our disciplinary action has actually moved from the places where sometimes they do demotion, transfer. No. If we have involved in such a thing, we terminate.
Thank you very much for that strong answer, Reverend. I believe the answers have been 2 in 3. I feel we should have a space for one more question. Is the mic close to this gentleman? Let me give you my mic just to save time.
Thank you. I've got a multifaceted question, or what I'm going to do basically is ask it to 2 of you. To the gentleman from the central bank, you've noticed that a lot of the questions have been targeted at you, and I don't think it's deliberate, but there's something to say about what's currently happening in the mobile money space, in the digital space, and how Bank of Ghana and policy seeks to regulate it. You mentioned yourself that you're aware of certain companies that have gone and reinvented themselves as Nigerian companies. Now, if your policy to register or regulate these up-and-coming companies were as soft or accessible as you make out, why do you think they're going to Nigeria? That's the first question, because I think that it has been prohibitive, and I have spoken to a few companies myself that are seeking to go to Nigeria to go and register. So I'd like you to kind of speak to that. And then secondly, to the gentleman from Fidelity Bank, I'm wondering how your organization is getting involved in this digital space and what you guys are looking to do. It'll be interesting to hear your opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly clarify something. Great. So I think that entity, for instance, I gave an example of, is licensed here in Ghana. They're running well. They're doing okay. They're doing well. I think we have to recognize certain realities. And this, by the way, is not unusual. I know of an entity that I've known for years. We all know where they started from. Now, recently I was reading about them, and they rebranded as a company that was set up from London. That's fine. Ultimately, business is tough out there, and do what you need to do to get your investments. We have no qualms against that. I think it's a matter of how well are you operating here, how well structured are you, and those are the things we're keeping an eye on. Now, there are some entities certainly who, from an investment standpoint, who will look at a market like Nigeria, will look at a market like South Africa, will look at a market like Egypt. What is their motivation? Addressable market is the size. I think we are well regulated as a sector, but we also have to acknowledge the fact that ultimately size of market plays a certain role in an investor's motivation, because that's what you're seeing. What is the growth potential for my investment? And that's why you see that in spite of whatever challenges may be in several other markets, you will see investors still going in. So that's the first thing. You also have to acknowledge something. And I think for us, we're a country of 30 million people. We're doing an incredible job trying to digitize as much as possible, both public and private sector. But we also recognize the need to expand, the need to grow. Our fintechs need to be able to scale beyond the borders of Ghana. And so you may have seen in news, for instance, that some fintechs in Ghana have acquired other fintechs in other countries, or fintechs in Ghana have gone to other markets and are competing there. It fills me with pride when I go to certain countries and I see Ghanaian fintechs operating there. Sometimes the staff from Ghana have somehow moved there and are heading operations there. So this is not unusual. And what we are doing, even within that perspective, from that perspective, is that how we define the operating environment here, the requirements and the standards we hold our fintechs to, carefully balancing risk and the ability to grow, is allowing them to be viewed very positively in the markets they go into, so they are not struggling as much entering there. We're also coordinating with our fellow central banks. It's a standard operating reality that we collaborate and share peer learnings. Ghana happened to have been one of the first markets with the forward-thinking mobile money regulation, for instance. So there are some countries, if I go there right now and I pick their mobile money laws, I can quickly recognize some of the things that are in there. It takes its roots from here. What that does is the companies that are regulated here, when they go there, they already have a head start in terms of compliance. They have a head start in terms of meeting the requirement. So what we are trying to do is help build companies that are built to last, help nurture innovation that can scale not just within the continent, but globally. And for that, I think it's a mission that we're confident in what we're doing, we're comfortable with it, and we're also open-minded for feedback, and we'll continue to improve and enhance our regulatory environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oppong, for your multifaceted answer.
Yes, thank you for that question. We do have a digital innovation unit, which is under the transformation department. We've already had some initial conversations with Kwame and team. We have some use cases we want to test in a sandbox that Kwame has got. And I think I'm going to get Kwame to set up a thematic sandbox, which actually focuses on the ECD. Because then we can play in that space, test out product, test out use cases, make sure that we're ready for the market. Now, from a Fidelity standpoint, the partnership with the regulator is going to be key. The partnership with FinTech is well going to be key. And we see technology as a key thing to drive us into the next phase. And we believe engaging with the regulator early to understand how ECD is going to play is going to be very key for us. So to answer your question, we're already in talks with the Bank of Ghana regulatory team. We're engaging with them actively to look at some use cases we can put into the sandbox to play with. I don't know, Kwame, no pressure. Is the sandbox ready?
The sandbox is actually ready. It's operating now. We initially launched a pilot, so we can also internally, initially the idea was to help with our fintechs, but it has to be broader than that. It's for the whole financial sector. So there are certain learnings you pick from that, and then you enhance it, the process. And we've learned a lot, to be honest, from what we envisage. But the ECD actually is currently, there's a sandbox for that, unfortunately, because it's a control pilot, and there will be some announcements relating to some banks participating at Terra. But we have a sandbox in place that would allow some testing to go on. And eventually, before we actually make a decision to scale ECD as a permanent addition to the notes and coins, we will also make that available. But our existing sandbox can actually also run CBDC, so we have both going for us.
Impactful answers right there. Mr. Tandon, Mr. Oppong, Reverend Owusu-Ansah, Mr. Akyeampong, Mr. Banahene, Mr. Akoto, thank you very much. It's been my honor to serve as your moderator for this panel. Thank you to the very eager audience who's been following us since this began. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the organizers of this Business and Financial Times and our sponsors. With this, I say good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the amazing Maxwell Ampong. Please join your panelists for a group photograph. And I believe they've done justice to the topic.
In partnership with Mastercard Foundation,
Digitalisation of the
KPMG, Bank of Ghana, Business and Financial Times, in